Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank the Savannah Book Festival for having me here. I think what they're doing is a marvelous thing, and it gives a lot of authors access to venues like this to be able to talk about what they do and what they're passionate about. And so I first and foremost would like to thank them for bringing me here. Secondly, I'd like to thank everybody that's sitting out here for taking interest in what it is that I do and the book that I wrote, the message that I like to convey in terms of the importance of military working dogs and the different types of missions that they're doing, the wonderful things that they're capable of. Without your guys' support, this wouldn't exist. So thank you for coming and supporting me and the book. First and foremost, I'm just going to go over kind of my background in terms of how I got involved into dogs, especially as it relates to military working dogs. I grew up in northern Iowa. In northern Iowa, there's not a lot to do other than farm, wrestle, and hunt. So it was kind of I wouldn't say it's necessarily a destiny as opposed to it was just picking one of the few things that there are to do in Iowa. But I got involved in bird dogs early on. A lot of my friends had them. We had a black lab growing up named Bud that I talk about in the book that was kind of my buddy and the gateway into the dog world, as it were. But at a very early age, I recognized and appreciated the different genetic traits that all these dogs possessed in terms of their ability to use their nose, their steadfastness in terms of what they were willing to go through from an environmental standpoint, i.e. cold water, brushing through or bursting through thickets of brush and thorns, and they were just tough dogs that were motivated to do the type of work that we were asking them to do. I noticed even as a young child just the dog's ability to use their nose. They would instinctually use the wind to their advantage and would find things that for me was very surprising that they were able to do it. And it was kind of a foreshadowing in terms of what I do now and where it led me ultimately. And that fascination for their ability to use their nose is something that, frankly, is why they're so valuable to us from a military standpoint. I didn't realize that at that age. To me, it was just cool to see a dog that, in the dead of winter could snake back and forth and, bury his nose 12 inches into the snow and find a ketchup packet that had been opened 6 weeks earlier. To me, it was just neat to see something like that, and obviously the applications that I got involved with later on were much more serious than ketchup. But I spent a number of years with friends. Their dads would train their dogs. The dogs would go out, and we'd either do duck or bird hunting of some sort. And I just always marveled at the dog's ability to do what they did. Once I graduated high school, I joined the Navy at 17, right out of high school. As soon as I graduated, I went to boot camp. 6 months after boot camp, after my initial A school training, I went into BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. I completed that, and after that I went through some more specialized training, SQT, etc., to the advanced training until you get to an actual SEAL team. Then I was stationed to SEAL Team 3, and I was there for a number of years. While I was there, and prior to that, I got into catch dogs, hog hunting dogs, etc., pit bulls, which I talk about in the book a little bit. And again, I found myself just really marveling at the physical characteristics that these dogs possessed in a similar way to the bird dogs, but now there was an added element to it, in that there was true forward natural aggression that these dogs possess towards other animals. And again, I found myself very impressed by their tenacity and their will to succeed, their will to win, and their ability to take down animals 2, 3, 4 times their size. It was at that point where I really got into the animal husbandry aspect of dogs, where I paid real close attention to nutrition and conditioning. From a veterinary aspect, I learned a lot in terms of patching dogs up after they would get injured in hunts, etc. And I learned just about every aspect of of raising dogs from from an animal husbandry standpoint, the same way a dairy farmer would. Then I started to get into the genetic theory of breeding and bloodlines and how they affect the different aspects of a breeding program, and why it's important to pay attention to inbreeding and line breeding and outcrossing, et cetera, and getting real into the weeds as far as breeding is concerned. After that, I just got more and more involved in terms of every aspect of managing dogs, and I had a number of dogs in which I bred and raised and trained for hunting or working purposes. And in an Iraq deployment in 2003, there was a Marine detachment that had a single-purpose explosive detection dog, and what he did was essentially alerted on a cave complex. There was a small doorway that was not much bigger than one person could get through at a time. A group of Marines were getting ready to go inside and clear it, and their dog was snaking back and forth. There was all this change in behavior. The dog, you could tell he was on to his target odor, and immediately, right inside the doorway, he sat down and stared, which was the indication that there was explosive odor present. Upon close inspection of that doorway, there was a clump of grenades that was attached to a booby trap right inside the doorway. And for me, without question, that was my light switch moment in terms of really realizing the potential that these dogs had, and the role that they were able to play in augmenting mankind overseas in the battlefield. And from that day forward, I was starved for knowledge in terms of working dogs as it relates to military and police type of work. I found it very fitting and very powerful. It's one of the things that I mentioned early on in the book, is that from the earliest recorded times of battle, there's one constant in terms of what we still use even today. We have billions, if not trillions of dollars invested in smart bombs and drones and laser-guided everything and night vision and thermal and our weapon systems and ammunition and explosives, you name it. But from the earliest recorded times of when man battled each other, there's one constant, and that's the use of canines. Even back as far as Egypt is concerned, they use dogs to augment themselves in battle. And to me, it really speaks to the truism of man's best friend, and that not only are they great pets and great companions, but they're also dogs that save our lives, and that we literally depend on them to help keep us safe in a number of capacities. When I was finished with my time at Team 3, I moved on to an instructor role. The nice thing about that is it gave me a little bit of a break in terms of from an operational standpoint, and I was able to really get into the weeds of dog training as it relates to military work. I trained with a number of different clubs and groups and units, organizations, detachments, et cetera, that really gave me a very well-rounded perspective of what dogs did, how they did it, right ways to train, wrong ways to train, all the different multitudes of ways that these dogs are incorporated into military service. And there's truly the sky is the limit mentality in terms of what you can do with these dogs. I realized that very quickly, and that the only thing that limited us as human beings to what we could do with these dogs was ourselves. If we looked at it from a training perspective and really put our minds to it, there's almost nothing that we couldn't do with these dogs. It was very eye-opening to me, the level of capability and capacity that you can get these dogs to. As I transitioned to get ready to get out of the Navy is when the regular SEAL teams started implementing their own canine program. It's frustrating from a military standpoint and as a former special operator, in that dog programs were used before within the special warfare communities. Back in Vietnam, there was a number of units that used them.